Welcome to the Aiki Dojo Podcast. I am David Ito, Chief Instructor of the Aikido Center of Los Angeles. And with me is...
Bill D'Angelo, also from the Aikido Center of Los Angeles.
Afternoon, Bill.
Afternoon to you, Sensei. Good afternoon.
So what should we talk about, Bill?
So today, this was an idea that I had, and it kind of goes like this. Are martial arts, and Aikido in particular, an art? So are martial arts an art?
Art. So what is the definition of art?
So there's a couple. I pulled this from the Oxford English Dictionary, trying to get a good authoritative source, and it has the first definition is art is an expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, usually in a visual form such as a painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated for their beauty or emotional power. That's definition number one. The second one is more limited. Art are works produced by human creative skill and imagination. The last one, I think potentially may be most applicable from a low-level sense, is art is a skill at doing a specific thing, typically one acquired through practice. So of all these definitions, I mean, the last one I think is Aikido is obviously an art if it's a skill that you do a specific thing, which would be the curriculum of Aikido, typically that's acquired through practice. And we talk a lot about practice in Aikido. So certainly I think that definition has a initial application.
Well, I don't know. That's the thing. This idea of art, or do, right? Aikido, Aikijutsu. This Aikijutsu is this. Those are the kind of this thing in that some people believe that Aikido only became an art, or a lot of these art forms traditional arts became art forms because of the post-war ban on martial arts and things of that nature. So the last definition, that one is the most closest,
obviously
applicable to what Americans or Westerners might think. But in Japanese, it's a kind of a little bit different idea that it is an art because of the way you pursue it, right? So that's why the last one is kind of the best definition of art. But what we think about it as, people who aren't very cultured, art is just a painting on the wall, right? It's static. But art is static. In the Japanese understanding of art, it's alive. It's ever evolving. You are the art, that you are ever evolving. And since he talks about the art of peace. Peace is not something you achieve, it's something that you practice. Aikido is not something you can achieve, it's something you must practice day in and day out.
Every day.
And that's why one of the things I admonish you guys about all the time is that you have to leave the physical. You have to master it, and then you got to leave it. Because you have to leave it because that's when you get older, it just doesn't serve you anymore, right? There are no old ass kickers. There are no old, fighters, right? And so you have to be able to, you as a human, you are the art. The art you're trying to create as you as a human being. And, even for myself, right? I am the most uncultured person that you'll meet, but I'm trying to become a better human being, and that's the art that you're really trying to create.
It sounds like what you're saying is that there's a moral component.
Not necessarily just moral. We're talking about evolutionarily becoming a better and better and better human being. So, yes, I mean, the other day there was these two. One was a kung fu teacher and one was a BJJ teacher, and they were going back and forth on the internet and how martial arts doesn't make you a better person. Martial arts is just a piece of equipment. right?
Just
it doesn't make you better. It doesn't make you a better person, but that shows your level, because that's a very low level way to think about yourself. I'm just a killing machine? No, I saw you beat up that person and start crying. So how much of a killing machine are you?
Right.
Right? We are human beings with feelings and emotions. So because we have feelings and emotions, right, we're not designed to hurt things. That's a primal thing that just happened. You're in a cave, something came in to steal your food and water or fire, and you have to stop it. And the only way you knew how, because the only language you had then was is your fists.
Right.
Right.
Or a weapon.
Or, well, yeah, it depends on when
we're measuring this.
Yeah. So that's a thing that we are evolved people, right? We have language skills, right? And so we say, please don't do that. And so you as the art form is the thing that you're really trying to develop as a human being. And it goes through these three stages. Shu, Ha, Ri. Shu is the time, this is Japanese, of course. Shu is the beginning, where you're trying to copy something. And then in our context, we're trying to copy Aikido. So you try to copy every aspect down to the smallest detail. That's Shu. Blindly. Not like, just do it.
Yeah.
Not argue the context. I don't understand. These will. Ri, that's the time when you're trying to really figure out the smallest details, the whys. Mm-hmm. Well, why do you do this? It's like, and your foot is like this. And then, I'm sorry. That's Ha. Ha is the details, the whys. The smallest down to the smallest detail that you're going to master. And then Ri is what they call breaking the form, but it's not the breaking of the form, it's the breaking away from the form.
Okay.
Right? So if we go Shu, Ha, Ri, Shu is my parents told me not to do that.
So don't do it.
Right. Ha is I probably shouldn't do that. And the Ri is I just don't do that. Right. But when you try to evolve and you try to make it an art form, the art form that you're trying to create is you. So the picture that you paint of yourself in the beginning is different than the picture you paint of yourself at the end.
Yeah.
Right. So in practice, practice the same way, right? You master the details of Aikido. You master every one of the steps. Then you master the details, all the mini details, and then you break free from that thing. And that's that famous story where it's like I think it's in Zen Flesh, Zen Bones, but I'm not sure, where the guy goes to the sword master and says, "Teach me how to use a sword," and he shows the sword master the sword, and the sword master goes, "What's that?" Right? Because he's transcended that thing. He no longer needs the sword as the vehicle to develop himself. In the beginning, first two steps, Shu and Ha, you need the sword to develop yourself. But later on, you have to put the sword down. So like if you've ever seen the movie Hero with Jet Li,
sure.
It tells all these different tales on how, and then he gets closer and closer and closer to the emperor.
Right.
And then he said, right before Jet Li attacks him, the emperor's looking at this big calligraphy, and he goes, I realize what it means, that you have to put the sword down.
Right.
That's true mastery, right? So in the first two stages of Aikido, you need to kick butt. You need to be this thing. But in the third, you realize this is beating up people is empty, and it never made me feel any better about myself. Oh. Right. And so then now Aikido truly becomes the vehicle for change. But it has to start out with, knocking fools out, punching people in the face. And then once you've fought every person in the world, you will realize there's no one else to fight but yourself. So in the second stage, you fight yourself. And in the third stage, you transcend fighting altogether.
I was thinking like there's a similar, and I'm not a visual artist, but I think that there's a similar trajectory in visual arts. Like you think of someone like Picasso, who in his early career did a lot of representational work, like people the way they really looked, or a house the way it really looked. And he was incredibly good at it. But then you see the progression. People become like different shapes. Spaces get more geometry that doesn't look real. And then you have almost like total abstraction at the highest level. I think it's interesting because like one of the definitions talks about the aesthetic or emotional value that you get out of the art experience. And it sounds like you're talking a little bit like that.
Yeah, I mean, one could say that Picasso's first level was to get really good at painting these people, and then he also did that to make money.
Right.
And then the more he painted them and the more he developed himself, the more he could see past the physical. And then he could see the ugliness or the beauty of them. And so the geometric shapes in the face perhaps represent how he sees them. And then the most abstract is just the ephemeralness of what he sees in them.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what, I don't know. I'm not really in the Picasso, but then that's why this one face is called monkey, because what he sees is that person, this is what he sees as their aura, the inside
energy.
Of them.
Yeah.
Right. The smallest detail. So when you're doing your Aikido training, the first stage you want to smash people. Second stage, first stage you want to smash and dominate others. The second stage, you're good at dominating others.
Right.
And then the third stage, you realize,
I don't need to do that.
This is empty. I better stop doing this. And then also, do I really want to do this? And why did I want to do Aikido in the first place?
Right.
I wanted to do Aikido because I was afraid.
Right.
And
I didn't want to be afraid.
And I don't want to be afraid. And then when I did Aikido over the first stage, I learned not to be afraid. And then in the second stage, I was no longer afraid. And then in the third stage, I realized, no, I'm still afraid. I just cover it up. So then I really should address this fear. But it took 30 years and 3 stages to get to this place where you go, now I have the courage to look inward. And then that's the thing you're really the art form you're really trying to create. Are Picasso's first paintings more expensive or his last paintings?
His last paintings.
Yeah, because the last paintings show there's
mastery.
That mastery, the trueness, right? I did it for my mom, I did it for my dad, I did it for me, and now I do it for the world.
Right.
Right? And so that's the thing you're really trying to get to this place, right? In the last podcast, you said you're 56.
Yeah.
So at 60, you have this red hat ceremony in Japan. When you get to 60, you've lived through 5 cycles of the Chinese astrology, right? So 60 years. And that when you've gone through 5 cycles, you are now free. Because the first 30 years was for your ancestors, and the second 30 years were for your family, for your parents.
Okay.
And now at 60, your life is your own. Right? So because it's your life is your own, you get to dictate the details. You get to dictate what you're going to do, right? And so that's where you're hoping that as an art form, your Aikido training kind of really, really culminates at this 60 years old level, 60 years of experience. Because now you no longer, the first 30, you're just trying to beat some butt.
Right.
And, or learn how to beat people's butts. And then the second 30, you're dominating people. But now you realize like it's empty.
Yeah.
And then now you really, really are going after this idea of Masakatsu Agatsu, right?
Self-victory is...
Yeah, the only true victory is self-victory. But if you think, oh, well, no, BJJ says Aikido fake and not effective. Well, yeah, it's not. So is BJJ, so is Taekwondo. Because really, all you're really learning to do is beat someone off and fend off fear, right? And then you realize when you get to a certain level, you get to a certain age, you go, I'm still afraid. Oh, I'm still afraid. But then the thing is, martial arts training gave you the courage now
to go on,
to go and see what that thing really is. And that's where that's what it's all about. Beating people up, learning martial arts to defend yourself is way too slow. You know what's the fastest?
Gun.
A gun. You whip that thing out.
Problem solved.
Problem solved. If I pull out my gun and no one else has a gun, I'm the boss.
Yeah.
You're going to do whatever I tell you to do. Right? That's why when they rob a bank, they don't bring a pickle. right? They bring a gun because the
Get
gun.
people's attention.
Yeah, well, but you're the ultimate,
Yeah.
right? Stalin said, range is king. Range is king,
Yeah.
right? So if you pull out this gun, you're instantly. I bought it. I wait how many days?
I think it's like 30 days in California.
In California, I buy my gun. I wait 30 days, and I'm an instant badass.
Yeah.
No black belts, no
Needed.
bowing needed. I'm a badass unless I come up against someone else who has a better, bigger, faster, more magazine gun, which is not likely, right?
Yeah.
So you see what I'm saying? That's like this argument about is Aikido effective? Is BJJ better? Is Taekwondo better? Foolish. Super ignorant. Because in the end, it's just you.
Yeah.
You got to sit in that shower and cry those tears and get that dirt off your body. But what's going to help you? What's going to help you when your dad dies? What's going to help you when your wife is in the hospital? Taekwondo? Have you seen my crescent kick? That's not going to help you get through that. When you're sitting in the hospital and your kid is sick, what does BJJ or Aikido or anything do for you? Nothing. But the skills that you learn in martial arts training, in Aikido training,
will benefit you.
Because it gives you the courage to not freak out. It gives you the courage to not grab the doctor and go, see that girl in room 6? You give her the best treatment, or you and I'll meet in the parking lot.
Right.
Like, no, like it gives you the courage to face it. That's the art you're trying to develop. You as a human being.
Yeah.
Dude, the world, it's full of suck. And the older you get, the more it sucks. You know why? Because everyone starts to die. Everyone starts to get sick.
And that sucks.
You lost all your money and you're 55 and you got to go get a job at Walmart. What is your BJJ technique going to do for you then? Nothing. But the thing is, if you train in a martial art and you learn stick-to-itiveness, you learned perseverance, you learned to be courageous, you learned all these different skills, then that's what benefits you. Being able to choke somebody out really, really well doesn't do anything when you have nothing in the bank and you got to go get a job or you got to go get 2 jobs.
Right.
So see how like the art you're really trying to create is yourself. As we get older, everything becomes tighter. Time, energy, money, relationships, people die, people get sick. Where was all that when we were 25?
Not very much around.
When I was 25, I didn't know a whole bunch of people that died. I didn't go to a whole bunch of funerals. I didn't worry about money. You know,
it's a different context.
It's a different context because the world changes.
Yeah.
And when the landscape of the world changes, you need to have skills to weather those storms.
Yeah. You need emotional and moral techniques.
Yeah. And that's what you learn in martial arts. And that's why it's just the practitioner who's effective. But what martial arts is effective in doing is it helps you improve your character, and then it gives you these skills.
So I have a kind of unrelated question about art and Aikido.
Sure.
But when I think of martial art as an art, people often comment who've never done martial arts, they look at Aikido and they're like, wow, that's aesthetic. Like really good Aikido seems beautiful. And I'm wondering, have you experienced that effect from Aikido, that it has an aesthetic experience component to it? Because I grew up watching boxing with my dad, and they used to say, traditional boxing, like the sweet science, and it's got this technique that you watch it and you can appreciate the beauty of a boxer. But it seems to me like Aikido has beauty. It also has an aesthetic component to it.
It does, but the thing is that like the best knockout I ever saw was Michael Nunn knocking out Sambu Kalambe, right? It's just like Michael Nunn's this left-hander, he steps around, 1-2 punch, knocks the dude out, right? It's so sweet, it's great. I mean, Michael Nunn was his name. Michael Nunn, second to none.
Right.
He was awesome. But then he got hooked on cocaine and his whole life went into the
Fell
toilet
apart.
And he's in and out of jail and you go, darn, that was Michael Nunn though, man. That this knockout right here, was the greatest knockout I had ever seen. And I always used to be really into boxing, right? So like that's the thing is that you look at Aikido, unless you do Aikido, it goes, ooh, it just looks very flowy and all these things. But once you do Aikido and you start training, you go, whoa, that was crazy. The thing that person did. Or you look at Yamaguchi Sensei when people go, Yamaguchi Sensei is fake. And you look at it and you go, dude, look at that Kimusubi connection. Wow. And then that's where you're like inspired and for that definition of art, right? The aesthetic, the inspiration that you saw, and you're just like, wow.
So I'm not sure I'm going to get the quote right on this, and I'll have to double check after. But I believe there's a quote from Plato about aesthetics and morality, which I think ties in kind of what you've been talking about. And what Plato says is, it's a very simple sentence: the good is the beautiful. And I remember the first time I read that, and I didn't even know how to understand it.
Right, because good is based on the perspective of the person. So from an Aikido standpoint, when you look at this person do Aikido, most people are wowed. Whoa, Shirakawa Ruji, that is great Aikido.
Right.
But when I look at Shirakawa Ruji, I go, But when I look at second Doshu Aikido, which people say is very plain and vanilla, I go,
beautiful.
Wow, look at that beautiful movement. But then I look at Shirakawa Ruji and I think that's cool, but I don't want to be Shirakawa Ruji, but I want to be second Doshu, right? And then you look at third Doshu Swadiwaza and you go, whoa, his Swadiwaza is so good. You know, someone the other day said, third Doshu's Aikido so fake. And I was like, what? Because Furu Sensei told me, we watched a video of third Doshu doing Swadiwaza, and he told me, you make your Swadiwaza just like that.
Right.
And when I was second Dan, I copied third Doshu Swadiwaza so closely, Sensei said, your Swadiwaza right now is Godan level. And I was like, whoa, am I Godan level? But like to get your Swadiwaza to be that good, there's no way you can fake that.
Right.
There's no way. But like the whole point of it is that you look at, it all depends on your perspective and what you understand. When you don't know anything, you go, wow, Shirakawa Ruji is awesome. Look at the way he did that. Look at the way he does the kickworm when he does Ikkyo Ukemi. And you go, pfft. But when I look at second Doshu, I think, how does that dude move like that? How does he turn the corner like that so smoothly?
Effortlessly.
And you go, and that's the thing. It's like, second Doshu is the Aikidoist Aikido. Aikidoist?
Yeah. The Aikidoist Aikidoist.
Yeah,
or it's the highest level of expression.
Yeah. But people today don't like second Doshu Aikido. They say it's too vanilla. It's too plain. But the thing is, that's what makes it so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's not... It lacks this weird nuance that people do today. It lacks all this like fakeness and mystique. It's just this pure movement.
Right.
And that's the thing I watch and I go, wow. When I watch Yamaguchi Sensei, I go, that's crazy. I don't know how he does it. But when I watch second Doshu, I just like sit there and like I hear like violins playing. And I just think that's the Aikidoist I want.
Second Doshu is pretty amazing.
You know, but when I look at old senseis, I go, like Yamaguchi Sensei, I go, wow, I wonder how I did that.
Right.
You know, but it's too far ahead. But also it's not, maybe it's too far ahead so it seems unattainable. But second Doshu's, when you look at it, it's very beautiful. And it's beautiful because it's basic, right? You draw a picture of a flower, you have to draw all the stuff around it to make it look good. But if you just drew the flower...
It'd be beautiful.
Yeah, it would be beautiful, right? So like so trying to understand Aikido in the sense of like elegance, right? This and you know, maybe it's too abstract, and so it's easier just to be juvenile. So you go, wow, look at Shirakawa Ruji, right? Look at this thing, and then everybody tries to be Shirakawa Ruji, right? But if you look at Shirakawa Ruji, he can do a backflip.
Yeah,
he's
also a showman, right?
Yeah,
I mean, he makes his thing doing showy video.
When I was younger, I could take all those ukemi also.
Yeah.
But the thing I can't do is I can't backflip. right? So he can backflip really, really well. So he's very athletic then.
Right.
So, but the whole point of it is that where do we take that Aikido? What are we going to do with it? How does he make it beautiful? The true beauty, in Japanese aesthetics, this call it like mono no aware, like when the pathos of things, right? That wabi sabi, that this moment is never going to happen again.
Right.
Right. It's beautiful because it's going to die. That's very Japanese.
Right. Japanese aesthetic.
Yeah. So when we talk about this idea of art, right? When you look at Shiro Kawaruji's technique, and I pick on him a lot in these things. It's just because he's like the forefront of things.
He's the flavor today.
But when you look at Shiro Kawaruji, there's no mono no aware. Like, it's going to die. It's going to die. That's what makes it beautiful. Second Doshu's Aikido, well, he's going to die. He died, right? But you look at it and you think, he's going to be no more. So it's going to go away. And that's what makes it beautiful.
Right.
Right? In that context, you look at it. And then we as human beings
are going to die.
Right? And so the thing that you're trying to get to this level where you become this beautiful person and then you die, right? But that's what you're trying to create.
Right.
And so that's the thing, is like you're sitting here thinking about, is Aikido art? Is Aikido art? Yes, you are the art. Aikido is the paint, right? But you are the canvas. You are the thing. You are the sculpture, the David that is being chipped away. And so that's the thing you're trying to. The beauty is that you are going to die, but because you're going to die, you try to make it as beautiful as possible before you die. Do you want to be the guy that when you're 99, you go down and they knocked out this person in the parking lot, and then you died 5 minutes later? Like, oh, but Bill, he knocked out this 22-year-old kid. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
No. Or you walk downstairs and you opened up a bag of all your money and threw it out the window and gave it to all the people, and then you sat on the bed and died. That's more beautiful.
Yeah.
That you did this thing, or you ran out into the street and pushed this kid out of the way of the car, and then you got hit by the car and died. That's beautiful. But being able to beat people up, not that beautiful. It's bloody, guts all over the place. When people die, they poop themselves. You don't feel great about yourself. Why do you think all these people have PTSD? Shouldn't they be going reveling in their destruction of others? No. It killed them to kill that other person. Right? Because you as an art, a form of art, devolved.
When you look at, maybe not Shirakawa Ruji, but watching Second Doshu, do you have, is it an aesthetic experience for you? Like, I mean, is it like you described it as beautiful? I mean, is it this, as you say, is it the simplicity? Is it the way he moves?
I don't know if it is an aesthetic experience, because I don't feel moved like I'm going to cry, but I also watch a lot of his videos. I took his class many times when I went to Japan before he died, and so, but also it's not that.
What was it like being in the class for someone that you thought was like at the highest level?
You just, like when I was younger and I would go to like third Doshu's class, like a little bit afraid, right? Because everybody's in there beating the crap out of each other.
Right.
But when I went to second Doshu's class, I never felt afraid.
Interesting.
And I watched him and I thought, wow, man. And it was very easy to do his style of Aikido. It wasn't like, what the hell's going on here?
Right. It wasn't overly complicated.
No. And he never spoke to me. He never came by and gave me a direction or anything like that. He was just a very down-to-earth person, from what I could tell, right? He wasn't walking around lording over people and doing all these things that I can see, but it wasn't really an aesthetic experience. But I don't think I've ever had an aesthetic experience where you go, right? Like, yeah, to have an aesthetic experience, I believe you have to be moved emotionally, right? So that's why they say, like, I almost cried when I saw that thing because it was so moving. Like,
but when you were appreciating Second Doshu's simplicity and of movement accuracy of movement, you must have felt something emotionally.
No,
No,
I
not
mean,
really?
not that I know of. Not that I know of. And like I was at the All Japan Aikido demonstration several times when he demonstrated. But
Did you see other people react to his demonstrations?
yeah, he was like the Beatles. People screaming.
Really?
Yeah, like they're so jazzed. But he's also on a certain level. Second Doshu is an afterthought in Aikido.
What do you mean?
Because he's the guy that came right behind
After.
Sensei, right?
But people talk about that he's the person that was really responsible for the internationalization of Aikido.
Yeah, he is. And then he's also the person who's responsible for the standardization of Aikido. And that's why they say Second Doshu ruined Aikido because the Aikido he's doing is nothing like O-sensei's. Oh, really? What O-sensei is doing is so far beyond our capability and capacity. Miles. There may never be someone that level. Ever, ever, ever again. Never. Because the context of the world has changed. Right? So there's no one who could study martial arts that assiduously and single-mindedly. They got college tuition to pay. Right? They got student loans to pay back. There's no going to doing Aikido after that. Right? So there's no one who could live their life like that unless their parents are filthy wealthy and they really feel like doing that. But generally people whose parents are filthy wealthy are soft.
Right. They're not strong.
No, then they have to learn to be strong. So that's the hard part. Like, I know you come from a wealthy family, but your parents did a lot of things to toughen you up.
Yeah.
Sailing, hiking, making you go outside, doing all these things, and that harsh treatment helped you. But what if your parents just threw cash at you and let you do whatever you wanted to do, wake up whenever you wanted to wake up? You'd be a little cream puff.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about this topic, in our previous podcast today, that when you were saying that people are not able to tolerate being bored today, I was thinking the other thing is that I think you also said, which was that we learn, I mean, this is a very Roman idea, we learn the most from our adversity. That's whatever is easy doesn't really benefit us in the long run. Maybe we think it does in the short term, but the more, obviously if the adversity breaks you, it's not good. Like if you just...
Says you.
I don't know, but I'm saying like if you die, like if you just freaking die...
Well, if it was bad enough and you didn't die...
Then you would grow.
You're supposed to grow.
Yeah.
It's supposed to... It changes you.
Right.
You grow up really fast. Dude, my kid's 10 years old. He's going to be 11 this month.
Wow.
Right? Like when I was his age, my parents already... were already divorced, but we were already latchkey kids.
Yeah.
Right. But the whole thing is that like today, when you think about people and adversity, see, the thing is that we're in this right now in the 21st century in 2024 and around this time, we're in an in-between stage. We don't have the horribleness of the previous generation, and that we haven't quite figured out how to be this next generation. So the thing which maybe you could talk about from a Greek standpoint is that we're going to have to introduce adversity to our children somehow. But the thing is that the adversity that we are going to introduce in the next generation to our children is controlled adversity.
Controlled adversity. So it's contextual, not too much that it overwhelms.
Right. But in the past, it was uncontrolled adversity. Your parents said, I got to go to work. Here's the key. So that adversity that came about with that type of lifestyle is we don't have any right now.
I also think...
But the point I said that maybe you could talk about this is that, is it the Greek or the Romans where they put their children into environments that were extreme in order to toughen them up?
I mean, the Spartans obviously the most famous, that when you became 8 years old, if you were a boy, you were removed from your parents, lived communally, and you had to steal your food. Like they didn't feed you from like 8 to 16. Like you, basically the people that could steal, hunt, kill, and for us, that's a really young age, like 8, not 16. Like by the time you were 16, you graduated to being an adult and you didn't do that nonsense anymore. But, for the Spartans, like for them, war is everything. So being immune to adversity or grow through adversity. Romans, the most famous Roman philosophy is Stoicism, which is the thing that you have control over is your mind's reaction to adversity, not the adversity itself, which is now a very popular thing today, that people like, Viktor Frankl wrote about this, that I could live through the Holocaust, but the Nazis couldn't take away my personal spirit. And I do think you're right. But one of the things that immediately came to my mind, because I've been talking to some parents about this, is that what we think of as absence of adversity, children growing up today have different things that they worry about that you and I don't think about. So like the one that I think of that I've read a lot of articles about is that for children growing up, so under 16 mostly, they're terrified about the world under climate change and the stories that are being told. And so children they're afraid for the future. Whereas when we were kids, we worried about nuclear war.
Yeah, I mean, but we didn't, depending on the age, right? But that's the thing, is that like we're gonna have to introduce some controlled adversity in order to build character.
Right, or adversity that can be overcome.
Right.
Yeah.
But see, like that's Aikido training, right? You want your kid to be well-rounded. You put them into Aikido, learning how to roll, learning how to be thrown down, doing all these different things, cleaning up the dojo.
Right. Discipline.
You're learning all these things, but those are the beginnings of art, right? You learn first to paint by the numbers.
Right.
And then you learn how to paint without the numbers, right? And then you learn how to not even think about what the cockatoo was that you were painting before. And then it looks nothing like a cockatoo, and then the title of the picture you painted is cockatoo. And then we all sit there and go, why is it cockatoo?
Well, the other thing that I think of too is that Aikido is very traditional. Aikido is very structured, but creativity and imagination, I think, come out when you have to confront a new situation with the tools you've learned and how you apply those tools.
But where does creativity and imagination come into? What level? Shu, Ha, or Ri?
Probably as you're transitioning from second to third.
It's only supposed to come out in Ri.
Right.
Because if you get creative at any point in Shu or Ha, you run the risk of ruining the whole structure.
Right.
Because the foundation crumbles because you focused on this one thing. And that's the problem perhaps in Aikido today. Because most Aikidos don't study sword, they don't have a true foundation in Aikido, right? And then because they don't have a true foundation in Aikido, they don't understand the footwork, they don't understand the body positioning, they don't understand how to guard their center line, or take another person's center line. But then you could take it out on a certain level because we don't fight anymore, and it's just about flow. And Shirakawa-Ryuji Aikido is right, so we don't really know. It's all in what you're trying to create, and it's all in the thing that it's what you believe.
How young do you think people can start Aikido effectively? I don't mean effectively like to beat someone up, but like to learn the discipline.
Well, I mean, let's say that the school has a good program. It has a good kids program that dovetails really well into adult program, right? They're supposed to start at the sixth year of the 6th month, the 6th day of their 6th year.
Okay. Wow.
Right.
Young.
Yeah. But I mean, you help teach kids class. 7, 8 is right about the time you want to start putting them in martial arts training. And then you hope that it's a good program. You hope that it's a strong program. And then those are the things that help them become better martial artists. And then ultimately, if we're talking about this context of art, they become the art that they're creating.
Right.
Like sometimes we'll get a kid in kids class. Like there was a student who started, and he ended up going to Berkeley. You spend time with this kid, you talk to him, you go, wow, what a great person. How did the parents do it? And that he has all these tools that you think that he is living the art.
Right.
And then on a certain level, he doesn't need Aikido.
Right.
Right. And you think, And then you wonder, are there more kids out there like that? But how can we teach and train kids to be like that?
Right.
To be seemingly, they don't need Aikido. One of the students from kids class, dad was also Aikidoist. She was in like the Japanese princess court, and stuff.
I remember.
But when we saw her at the dojo dance thing,
Dialed in, super dialed in.
Super dialed in, very polite, outgoing, well-rounded, and you just think, what the heck? She gave her princess speech about Aikido, and you're like, wow, man, what did the dad do right?
She was amazing. The thing that I noticed, and I told you this that night, was I hadn't seen her, I want to say in like 3 or 4 years. She came up to me, addressed me by my first name, was like, oh, it's so great to see you. I'm like, how many people like maybe remember someone from like 5-6 years ago that they had a modest amount of contact with, and they're like, not, as you say, they're warm, they're engaging, they're mature,
yeah,
but also like to have that social skill of knowing, like, when someone addresses you by your first name and you haven't seen them for a long time, you're like, wow, that person's really got it. And that level of social skill is something to be looked up to.
Yeah, and she was in the kids program and the adults program.
Right.
Almost quit right before black belt.
Yeah.
So you wonder out loud that 10 or 12 years that she studied in Aikido really
made a difference.
Made this huge difference, right? And then that's the thing that you're trying to create. That's the person that you're trying to get them to that level. Santiago Sensei in Spain, he had a student, George, who went all the way through kids, adult, black belt.
Wow.
And then he was so developed that he got into the Ministry of Defense's budget team. And it was such a hard job to get. But you wonder out loud, did the skills he learned in Aikido help him get to that level, right? And then he may not think he's living out an artful life, but that's the art right there. Because if he could do that, and he did get these skills, then sooner or later he's going to start painting some pictures, and then you're going to see the things that this person does, and then you just go, wow,
you'd be amazed. Yeah,
that this person, that they're a great person, a great human being, did some great things because of what they learned in martial arts training, right?
I think one of the things that comes to my mind that you've changed in the way the dojo works is people that develop in a community. It may not necessarily be specifically a hardship, but you learn ethical interaction with other people.
Yeah.
And then also there's just the benefit of being in a community that allows you to confront adversity. If you're part of a community, the adversity is more manageable than if you're alone.
Yeah, and then that's, when someone has an emergency at the dojo, it's not necessarily inside the dojo, but in their lives, I call all of you and say, hey, call this person, go that, hey, go by there, see what's going on, reach out to them, see if there's anything we can do, because that's what you really want, right? No one wants to go through these things alone.
No,
but so if we look at this idea of art, right, and adversity, so let's say for you, your mom passes away, right? You're having a hard time dealing with it. But because we developed this community and we've taught these people how to be better human beings, they reach out to you, take you to dinner.
Lightens the burden.
That's the art that you're trying to create.
Yeah.
Squeezing the life out of someone whose mom just died the day before. Probably
not the best thing.
How did that help them? How does that help you? And I always tell the story that one of the ways I learned that was this story with this guy named Al Miller. And I don't know if this is true from his standpoint, but it's true from my standpoint.
Okay.
That I was having a bad day and I was going really slow doing kaiten nage, and I was kind of a SOB back in those times. And when I went to throw him with kaiten nage, he grabbed my ankle. And I go, did you just grab my ankle? He's, oh yeah, I totally could have reversed you. And then I just went click and then started beating the crap out of him. He never came back. And then I remembered that his wife was in the hospital dying.
Oh, God.
And his only respite was coming on that one night and training for that 1 hour. And then I beat the crap out of him and he never came back. So from my standpoint, I took that from him.
Okay.
So when I did that, was I living a life of art?
No.
That was horrible, right? But these things have to happen so that you remember them. And that's why I remember his name. Because when I did that and I realized it, I thought, that's wrong.
Yeah.
So you're not living a life of art, right? Living a life of art would have been to have a joyous practice with him, helped him lighten the mood. And then he goes back into the battle, right? But that I didn't do that. I lost my temper and I pounded this guy into the ground and he never came back. So maybe there was other reasons why he didn't come back. But from my standpoint, I look at it and think,
oh, yeah,
I did that. I should not have done that. But everyone is suffering with something.
At some point, or all the time.
All the time. And so that's why I get on you guys. Don't be a jerk.
Right.
Don't be jerks to each other, right? Because you never know that person you're being a jerk to, that's the day, right?
Right.
And then you being kind to them and just training with them in a joyous way, enable them not to kill themselves that night, right? And you don't even know. You'll never know. And that's because, and that's the thing is that they say art is selfish until you put it out to the world. So if you are the art, until you start to interact with others, it's just selfishness.
Right.
So once you start to interact with others, your good human nature, that's the art that you're trying to create, and that you will never know what it did for another person.
Do you think that that's one reason why, like, our dojo has been so sick? I mean, we have young people and we have older people. I now consider myself on the end of the older people, but I wonder, talking about this sort of ethical and moral development, and the way that the dojo's changed, the way you've changed it, that we do have people that start later in life that have had other adversities, that we've taken on people that had physical limitations that never would have happened in the old dojo. And I'm assuming that that's an intentional shift for you. It's
not so much an intentional shift. You also have to understand the lay of the land, right? Perhaps it's harder to get people to do Aikido because young people to do Aikido because those people are busy trying to make their lives, so don't have time to train. But once they've made their lives and they have a pretty good kip going, they think, I want to do Aikido. And so that's about what age? 40.
45.
Right, 40, 45. And so that they go, I wouldn't mind trying a martial art. And, I stayed fit enough so I could still do martial art.
Right.
Right. And so some of that's just the context of the time. But also, we always say we got to get more young people. We got to get more young people.
Say that.
And then on a certain level, that is true. But really, some of it is just the lay of the land, right? If we go, the old days, they didn't have as many women. So we go, we don't want women. Denied. Application denied. You think we teach whoever shows up, right? And if you're lucky enough, you'll get some 20-somethings that you could pound into the ground and they love it. And their bodies are like, rubber, but we get what we get, right? And so my job is to teach whoever shows up to the best of my ability.
I think that's one of the sort. And I say this not loosely. It's one of the beautiful things about Aikido that people can come to it at any stage in their life, and the art has this place for all people. That's kind of a beautiful thing. This idea that we're all human beings, as you say, we all suffer. But Aikido now, like some people might harp on Aikido and say, "Oh, that's fake." Whatever, it doesn't matter. But if you look at all the martial arts, like as you say, like some martial arts, it's very hard to start when you're older, but it's mainly because of the way they're taught. Because Aikido is taught that this is like a central tenet of practice, which is like, don't attack harder than you want to be thrown. Don't attack a person. Don't hurt somebody. Don't, adjust your timing and energy to the person you're partnering with. Like, these are all really great moral guidance that they seem like they're mostly just about physical contact, but they apply to all kinds of aspects of human interaction.
Yeah. And then that's the parallel between studying Aikido, and then we just erase Aikido. We put being a human being.
Right.
Right. You learn to dial it back because that person walked in with a limp.
Right.
Right. And then you have the ability to notice that. At 20, you're too busy looking in the mirror and combing your great waft of hair. Right. When you're 40, you were kind of like stretching that bad knee you got. Then you walked it. You saw someone walking with their bad knee, and you went, "Oh, I see it.
It's all right."
Right, and then you understand.
Right.
And that's the thing. Is like until you get to be a certain age, you don't have the maturity to understand.
Right. You're not in this mental space.
Why do they send 19-year-olds to the front in a battle?
Because they're not too conscious.
Yeah, they haven't realized themselves yet, right? That's why that whole Paul Hastings song, then the 19, right? Like they sent those people to the front because they don't know any better.
Right.
But when you get to be older or more experienced, you know better.
Right.
Right. And that's the thing, is that who cares about effectiveness?
But that's one of the things I think is really great about Aikido is that is a central component of the education, is being considerate for your partner. And that Aikido is about consideration.
But Aikido is a more sophisticated martial art.
Yeah.
Right. So being a more sophisticated martial art, our desire is not to smash someone's face in.
Right.
Right. We don't try to hit their nose and make it bloody all over the place. Right. We're trying to understand, people shouldn't be thrown down like that. Oh, the person who's attacking us, they suffer. And they are only attacking us because they suffer.
Right.
So then, should I destroy them?
Probably not.
Well, but what's the reason why we don't destroy them?
You mean destroy them in practice?
No, in practice or on the street. You're supposed to use Aikido on the street also. So if a person attacks you, what's the reason why you don't destroy them?
Because they're human beings.
Right. And they're human beings and they're suffering. Just as I am a human being and I suffer. And if I do not wish to be destroyed when I am suffering,
don't destroy other people.
Then I should not destroy others.
Yeah.
And then to really understand that and to really kind of take that to heart. I am Japanese American, right? We were my
family
ancestors and families were put in internment camps. Therefore, I should not advocate that other minority groups be put into internment camps.
Yeah.
Right? In the 1916, you had the Gentleman's Agreement Act with Japan, which states that Japan can bring over women. All other Asian races cannot bring women. So then essentially they're all bachelors. But essentially the government is telling them who they can and can't marry because they're not allowed to marry outside their race.
Right.
How sad is that? That the government tells you who you can and can't love. So then, therefore, should I be against... should I tell people who they should love and not love?
Right. No.
No. So then should I be an advocate for or against gay marriage? Well, if I do it to them, it's going to be like they did it to us, and I can't do that.
Right.
Right. So we start to understand context, start to understand the world, start to understand yourself. So again, the art that you're creating is you, right? The things that you see, you think, gosh, like I used to be against, minorities, but the guy who saved me when I was drowning was a freaking minority.
Right.
I guess they're not all bad. Right. So that's the thing, is like you start to learn about the world, the universe, and think, yeah, that's, and the art you're trying to paint is you.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, is Aikido or what was the question?
Yeah. Is martial arts an art?
Is Aikido an art, a form of art? Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember,
it seems like an art to me, but at many levels. So we've really kind of pushed the envelope in what those levels could be in those ways that they are. I mean, I keep coming back to this quote from Plato that the good is beautiful. I think there's an element of what he's saying there too, which is beauty is a very almost like superficial standard of whether something is attractive or not attractive. Because beauty changes definition across cultures. But the idea of beauty being that thing which we aesthetically appreciate, and then having him say, but the moral thing is beautiful. Like the treating people well is beautiful. I think Aikido is like one of those like practitioners things that really gets that good is beautiful concept.
Well, but also though, what you're saying is that some of those things can be manipulated, right? Joseph Campbell says that like what you say is moral and just is evil and disgusting for others, yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. And that which side of the war gets to write the history?
The winning side.
The winning side, right? And so what Aikido tries to do is take it a step further and look into the person themselves and to understand this person suffers, right? This thing, not these people also suffer.
All humans.
All humans suffer. So they try to understand. Aikido tries to understand through their movements universal truths. All suffering, all people suffer. Violence is not the answer. Violence only makes more violence, right? And you start to really think about this. Like, yes, good is beautiful, but the good that you're really trying to understand is within your own context and the things that you're doing. Some people like Picasso, some people like Monet, right? But that's the thing, is that they're all expressions of the inner beauty of you as a human being.
Right. What stage of practice, in your experience as the teacher, do people start to see that? Because in the beginning, we're all just doing the technique. Is there a stage, or is it different for everybody?
I would say, and this is probably, it's my own opinion, some never stay the course long enough.
They just don't practice.
They just don't practice long enough. Some never leave the blood and gut stages of Aikido. Right? And so you have to if you're lucky enough to get to that place, right? Because all these at all times you're bombarded with adversity, and then you have to not give into that adversity. Ooh, I need money. I want fame. I want girls. And then you do Aikido to get those things.
Right.
So then Aikido ceases to become this form of art, but just a way to get the things that you want.
Yeah.
Right? And not saying that people shouldn't charge for Aikido or they shouldn't become famous or wealthy. That's not the point. The point is it becomes the goal. The goal that you're trying to do is what O-sensei said. It's Masakatsu Agatsu, the victory over yourself.
Right.
To understand. I could just teach the class and never take another class. I desperately want to train. But I finally got my knee back. And then
you don't want to get injured.
And then my ankle went out. Finally got my ankle. And then I'm just going, man, I hope this shoulder doesn't go out when I take a forward roll. Right? And you think, and that's where you really start to understand the world and context and things. You think, ha, 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 look at that old man doubled over when they walk. Ha, 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 look at that person in the wheelchair. Yeah. And then one day, that's you.
Right.
So you come to understand the way of the world. Today, the thing that you poo-poo becomes the thing that you desperately need.
Yeah.
Right? You think, we don't let women in this dojo. And then all of a sudden you go, man, we need to get more students. Whew, man, I wish some of those girls would come back. Right? So like that, you learn all these things about humanity and life when you study it. If you study Aikido long enough.
Right.
The more you study, the more you train, the more you address adversity. Right? You think, gosh, how do you live this life? My point of view for 50 some odd years was things happen to you and you must be ready. The thing I'm trying to understand today is everything happens for us. Adversity that comes to your door is there to help you, teach you. But it's hard when you go, I'm 56 and I just lost my job. I
don't want adversity. Right.
I don't like adversity. I want comfort. I want the money. And you think, this is here for me.
Yeah. So
what is it trying to teach me? Right? Adversity is just the chisel, which is revealing your David, your Bill. Right? But if we don't want to use that chisel, you're never going to unearth that person. Right? So that's the art you're trying. That is Aikido. That's the art you're trying to create as you.
Yeah. I think that's a really good place to wrap up.
No, I've got 10 more things to talk. No, that's fine. Well, thank you for watching, and don't forget to like or subscribe to this podcast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.